What's up, everybody? Listen, most podcasts start with somebody telling you how successful they are. This is not going to be that type of show. My name is Kyle, aka Crash Gordon, and I've spent the last decade building businesses, working in combat sports, specifically boxing, meeting interesting people, screwing things up, figuring things out, and I've decided that it's time to start a conversation. Welcome to the KG Show. Hey, and welcome to the show. As I said, my name is Kyle, aka Crash Gordon. I am a Grand Rapids-based sports and events photographer. I do a lot of work in the boxing industry, but that is far from all I do. So who the hell am I? Well, I am an entrepreneur, a small business owner, and I do a lot of things. I'm basically the Swiss Army knife of helping people make their brands look good. The first thing that got me into business was actually the music industry. I was a vocalist in a heavy metal band starting the time I was in high school till about the time that I was almost 30 years old. There was a couple different bands, but I got to do a lot of different things. A couple small tours, hearing myself on the radio, seeing some things like that, but I learned a lot about the business industry. I ended up going to college, getting my business administration degree, and I launched my first business while I was at community college, which was a pressure washing company, and that lasted for a couple years. And then I started a construction business that's called Claris Home Solutions. And I've owned and operated that business for the last 12 years. So back in 2018, I started training boxing, and I just fell in love with the sport. I had always had kind of a fringe interest in MMA and boxing. I grew up idolizing people like Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali. If you see behind me, I have the Louisville pennant. That's because I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky. But anyways, 2018, I started boxing. I went into a place called Box Sport, which actually was ran by Buster Mathis Jr. And I don't know if you remember him, but he actually fought Mike Tyson in the 90s. He is from Grand Rapids. And then I moved on and trained in a couple other gyms. I got into Muay Thai. I trained Muay Thai at a couple gyms, and it was never anything super serious because by the time I got into it, I was a little bit older, but I absolutely loved training, and I just became obsessed with the sport, right? So in 2021, I opened my first new business, and that was Strike Back Fight Club. It was a boxing fitness gym based in Easttown. Bad timing on that one. We'll get to that one in a different episode. In 2023, I opened Uppercut Sports with a partner, and that was a business that we made heavy bag mounts manufactured right here in America. We also had a line of apparel, and everything was geared towards combat sports. In 2023, also towards the end of 2023, I started getting into photography. It started really out of just kind of necessity. We were bringing in these really skilled, really awesome photographers, and they were doing work for Uppercut Sports. And that business was entirely bootstrapped. We started that with just the money that we had in our pockets. I was like, dude, let me just get a camera and see if I can take product pictures and maybe I can, do some social media content and we can just kind of see how that goes. Well, the rest is history because the last 3 years I've been absolutely obsessed and I have been doing everything I can to build a name for myself in my area when it comes to combat sports, specifically boxing. Over the last 3 years, I have worked with Michigan Golden Gloves. I was fortunate enough to shoot for Salida Promotions, Detroit Golden Gloves. We did some work with the King of the Jungle National Championships, and it's just really been so much fun. And kind of how we got to the point of how I was going to start this podcast is I'd spent a lot of time helping other people build their platforms, and I've made a lot of connections with a lot of different fighters and a lot of different promoters and coaches and gyms all across the state. And I decided that it was time for me to kind of launch into building my own platform. So here we are. I had the resources. I decided I was going to build a studio, and I've spent the last couple months just kind of tweaking and getting that set up and figured out. And so this is the next venture. So we went from pressure washing company to construction business to boxing gym to boxing apparel and heavy bag mounts to boxing photography. And now we have a podcast that's going to be mostly centered around boxing. Why start a podcast, right? Well, I mean, the truth is that I like to talk. I feel like I'm pretty opinionated about some things, but I don't feel like I get enough time to actually connect with people in a social manner and having longer conversations than what we can actually do on social media. Social media being part of my job, it's been absolutely exhausting to try and keep people's attention past the first 3 to 5 seconds. And that's just not really a dance that I want to do any longer. I want to do something that can get people involved and listening and actually have real, authentic conversation. So, I've met a lot of fascinating people through boxing, through business, through fitness, tattooing, music, entrepreneurship. There's just been so many people that I've met, and I have just decided that I want to give this platform to not only local voices, but as it continues to grow, to other people that I think are interesting, that I just want to have a conversation. So what are going to be the guest types that we're going to have on here? Well, as I've mentioned, primarily this is going to be combat sports focused, specifically with boxing, and I hope to grow the MMA side as I continue to make connections on that end. But coaches, business owners, creatives, weirdos, just people with great stories, because again, I really want this to be focused on having authentic conversation with people, because what's important to me is finding out what makes people tick, what makes people get into a ring and fight, what gets people into tattooing and why do they continue to do it, and what gets them out of bed in the morning. Just really getting into the deeper side of things and kind of gloss over these surface things and these personas and dig into who the person actually is, right? That's my goal. So what are you going to get from this show? Well, really this breaks down into three main components. You have the fight, you have the fringe, and you have the reel. So with the fight, it's going to be combat sports discussion. We're going to talk about fight news. We're going to talk about what's going on in the fight world. We're going to have fighters on to talk about their upcoming fights and the things that they have going in their lives and their training camps, coaches, gyms, promoters, everything involved with the fight world, right? Then we're going to have the fringe. So the fringe is more of a subculture-based thing where I want to talk with tattoo artists and photographers and videographers, musicians, and people that just don't really walk that vanilla sort of life, because that's not really my fucking bag anyways. So that's the goal there. And then with the reel is going to be business talks, relationships, just real talk with people about interesting things and the advice that they can give to younger people that are coming up and how that they can avoid certain pitfalls and maybe try and work around those things. I think that's going to be really important as well. So why does combat sports matter? So why is it such a big thing for me, and why is that something that I want to build? The stories that I've been told by some of these people are so wild that I just can't wait for you to hear them. Like, that has really been such a motivating factor, is just the stories that I hear from these people are insane, and the lives that they lived and the things that they've overcame, and the fact that they're still here swinging and working towards a better life for not only themselves, their family. And that is just so fucking cool. And I just cannot wait for you to be able to hear some of the stories that these guys are going to have when they come in here. That gets me going. That gets me excited. And that gets me really amped up and ready to continue to work on this, because I'm not going to lie to you, getting all this set up and getting everything looking good and the way I want it has not been easy. But combat sports is it for me. Combat sports, subculture, and just real people. That's the thing. I'm not going to put all this fucking TikTok bullshit all over everything. I'm not going to dress it up. I'm not going to make it something that it's not. This is raw, stripped down conversation. And I really hope that you find that you enjoy it. So moving on, I think I'm going to do an abbreviated version of probably what's going to be a usual segment, and we're going to talk about some combat sports related fight news and just some things that are coming up. So obviously I said I'm based here in Grand Rapids. Solita Promotions has a fight coming up June 14th at 20 Monroe, where our hometown champion JJ Pagan is going to defend his belt. He is undefeated, and he is back in Grand Rapids for the second time in 6 months to defend his belt again. I am so excited for him. I think Sardius Simmons is on that card. We have Lance Boogie Smith from Detroit on that card. King Kwan is on that card. And it's just going to be a really good event. I was hoping that I could work that event again, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Solita's moved in a different direction. And as of the recording of this podcast, they haven't even approved my media pass. So come on, Solita, get your shit together and let me work this fucking event. I really want to. This stuff that I did at the last one in February turned out really, really cool. I think it's some of the best pictures I've ever taken, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity. Don't necessarily like how I've been treated since, but I'm very thankful for that opportunity. So we got UFC 250 is also coming up on Sunday the 14th. There's been a ton of controversy around this, and I guess the first thing that I want to say is I love MMA. I've been following this sport for 6-7 years now. Super involved in it. I watch pretty much every fight. I watch Embedded. I listen to the podcast. I am a walking encyclopedia of MMA knowledge. The thing that bothers me the most is we are in a time that is incredibly politically divisive, and there has been an influx of politics being injected into my sport, and that fucking pisses me off. I don't care what side of the fence you're on, as long as you're a good person. And I think that's just, I'm going to leave that for what that is. So we have an event coming up at the White House, and that event is private, and it's closed off to the public. and it is for high-profile politicians. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I don't think the government has any place, and Bryce Mitchell actually just said this, so I'm really just kind of echoing what he said. Which is weird agreeing with Bryce Mitchell first off, but the government should not be in the business of sports entertainment. The government should be in the business of governing the people. We're going to leave that one there. So there's been a lot of controversy. There was actually a lawsuit that was just filed earlier this week where someone is trying to stop the event from happening because they are saying that it is illegal. I don't have a ton of details on that, but if I had to guess, nothing's going to come of that, and this fight will proceed. If anything is going to cancel the fight, we are looking at bad weather. I saw a report yesterday that there is a 39% chance of thunderstorms. People are like, oh, just throw it in the rain. How epic would it be to have, Alex Pereira facing off a Cyril Gahn and there's thunderstorms and shit and going on. Yeah, I agree. That would be sweet. But what you're not taking into consideration is the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of electronics that are going to be all over the place that cannot handle water. So I was talking with my wife about it last night, and I have to believe that Dana White has an arena on reserve, and if this is going to get rained out, it will get moved to an arena, and it'll probably still be a private event, but there's too much at stake. There's just too much at stake. This event's going to go forward. So what are my takes on the fights? Let's see. So we got Ilia Topuria and Justin Gaethje in the main event. I love Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje is chaos, and he's powerful. But he hasn't had a knockout in, I think, 7 fights. And he has been disappointing in his title fights. Ilia Topuria is the real deal. Is he cringe? Yeah, he's cringe as fuck. But he's the real deal. And I think we're going to see a pretty quick finish there. Alex Pereira and Cyril Gahn. Well, if Cyril Gahn can keep his fingers closed and not eye poke the shit out of Alex Pereira, I think Alex Pereira has a pretty good chance. The issue that we're dealing with here is that Cyril Gahn can move like a light heavyweight, and that is possibly going to give Alex some problems. That in and out movement could be potentially a big problem. What do I want to see? What do I want to see the outcome of that one be? I want to see Alex Pereira take the victory there, become the first 3-time champion in the UFC history. And I think that with Tom Aspinall injured, that's going to set up Alex Pereira versus John Jones. For the rest of the card, we got Sugar versus Amon. I love Sugar Sean O'Malley. I listen to him, his podcast a lot. I follow him. I think he's a really cool character. They wanted this fight. They specifically wanted this fight. And when you watch like the build up to it, they're talking about how they need to get that finish. They need to get that knockout. And that's true. He hasn't had a knockout since 2023. And 3 years is a long time to go without finishing an opponent. His last finish was Aljo. They get that exciting finish that sets up the rematch with Peter Yan, but obviously Peter Yan is still out with back surgery, so that is yet to be seen what's going to happen there. I like the addition of Josh Hokett versus Derek Lewis. Hokett can fight. I mean, he was really exciting versus Curtis Blades. I was watching the build-up, and like the character that he's doing and all of this stuff is just kind of like, he's taking a page out of Colby Covington's book. But besides the point, that dude brought it. So Derek Lewis has looked like shit his last couple fights, and I think he's probably past his prime. I mean, he is past his prime, let's be honest here. But Josh Hokett, man, if he takes it to Derek Lewis and gets that victory, we might be looking at a new superstar in the heavyweight division. Next, we got Mauricio Rufy versus Michael Chandler. If Michael Chandler can use his fight IQ, I think he has a chance. I think he's going to be pretty small in that fight compared to Rufy. Rufy is obviously a dynamic striker. Chandler's chin has been suspect in past fights. I'm going to go with Rufy on this one. Next, we got Bull Nickel versus Kyle Dawkins. Kyle Dawkins just re-signed to the UFC, and he's on the White House card. I don't know whose dick he's sucking, but that's pretty wild. And I don't fucking like Bo Nickel, so I'm not even going to talk about this fight. And then we got the banger of Diego Lopez versus Steve Garcia in the first fight on the card. That one, man, that's going to get people to tune in quick because I think that fight is going to be exciting. Both those guys like to bang. I'm going to go Diego on this one. and I'm going to say that I do not want to see Diego fight Volk again, so I don't know what's next for him after this fight, but I guess we'll have to see. So that's it. That's my take on UFC 250. That's informing people about the event that's coming up on June 14th right here in Grand Rapids at 20 Monroe. And this is the first episode. So I hope you've enjoyed what you saw. I hope you hit that subscribe button. Like my shit on social media, because I've got a long way to go. It's going to be a big uphill climb to get your people's attention. But that's what I'm going to try and do. This is the KG Show. Thank you.